When people talk, listen completely. Ernest Hemingway.
Today I'm going to show you how you can grow zucchini, cucumbers, beans, and squash all in a 10-foot by 5-foot area. In the past 2 years I did an experiment here. I had straw bales lined up and I grew beans and squash and zucchini in them, and they did real well in here. Those bales have composted down. I've added my own compost from our chicken manure compost, and I've added some mushroom dirt in here. But other than that, I haven't done anything to this. This is all 100% organic, and it's 100% no-till. So we're going to grow some beans. As you can see, I have wire, just old pieces of wire that I had laying around. This is cattle fencing, and I just drove a couple posts in, bent it over, and put it back to the ground. Last year, when we had the straw bales here, the beans grew up and made a trellis, and we were able to stand here and just pick beans underneath it. We also grew cucumbers on this and let the cucumber vines climb up this. We were able to just walk up and pick cucumbers. So we're going to plant a few cucumbers in here also this year. I'm doing a little bit different this year. I've made compost piles. I have 3 humps here, 1, 2, 3. We're going to plant squash and zucchini and another squash on this back one. We'll plant the beans and cucumbers on the side. So what I have here is I have a pack of old-fashioned beans from Baker Creek heirloom seeds, and I have some of my own that I saved from last year. These are white half runners, and I have some zucchini and some cucumbers, some straight neck squash and some crooked neck squash. So we're going to go through here. We're going to plant this today. This will be part 1 of the series, and then we'll come back later in the summer. We'll do another video and we'll show you how well it's done. But this is going to show you how much food you can grow in just a small area. Now we have another bigger garden up there. It's 100 foot by 100 foot that we grow a lot of our plants in. This one's down here close to the chicken coop. And we have a few raised beds behind us that we started when we bought the property. This soil up here is very sandy and very rocky. So what we had to do when we moved in up here, we had to do a lot of raised beds. We have galvanized beds, we have old tractor tires. We used rocks that we picked up, field stone that we picked up, and made 5-foot by 10-foot beds that we have our blackberries in. You can see behind me I have garlic. That garlic stays in all year long, grows all year. We have all the garlic we can eat. We just come out here all winter long and pick it right out of the ground on it. So today we're going to go ahead and plant this, get it going. Today's March 19th, or May 19th, I'm sorry. And it's a little bit late, but last week we had a freeze. It got down to 31 degrees. With the wind chill, it was 27. I did have 1 tomato plant and one of my wicking pots that we put out just as a test, and it got bit back a little bit. Some of this soil in this also is from one of my wicking pots. I wanted to change the soil out in it this year, and so I put it in here so we could utilize the soil, and then I'm going to fill it back up with other compost and soil. So let's get started. Now, if you've never grown squash or zucchini before, I was raised here in Tennessee you make a mound and you plant 4 seeds in it, and then you make another mound, you plant 4 more seeds. So that's what we're going to do today. I don't have any zucchini plants started, and I don't have any squash plants started, or I would just make a hole and plant 2 plants in each one of these mounds. But since I don't have any started, I'm going to plant 4 seeds in each one, hoping that all 4 of them will grow, but if just 2 of them grow, we're still in good shape. So this is probably going to produce all the zucchini and all the squash we want to eat throughout the summer. Now, if you want to can your zucchini or can your squash, then you're going to need a lot more. and we'll grow those up in the other garden in the big spot. But this will give us all the fresh zucchini, squash, beans, cucumbers that we want to eat in the summertime. So I want to show you that you can take a small area, even if you live in the city or live in a suburb. You can take a small area that's just 5 foot by 10 foot, and you can grow a whole lot of food in it. So let's get started. So on this first one, what I want to plant is our early crooked neck squash. So all you have to do is take your finger, poke a hole in the soil, whatever type of soil you're using. And like I said, I like to do north, south, east, west. I do 4 of them. So I just make 4 holes with my finger in the top and then drop a seed in each one. Now, you may want to go ahead and make you a marker and a little label to stick in here so you know that this is the early crooked neck squash. I do all mine on the computer. Everything's laid out on the computer, and I put in there, I put in the computer what we put where. And then I can print it off anytime I want. In case I lose my little piece of paper, sometimes the little markers that you use, depending on what type marker you use, by the end of the year, it's wore off. So I'm not going to be putting a marker in these mounds, but by all means, if you want to, put a marker in your mounds. Okay, so that was the early crooked neck squash. In the middle one, I'm going to plant the zucchini. And I'm going to do it the same way. We're going to put 4 seeds in, north, south, east, and west. And go ahead and plant them. You probably hear our peacocks in the background. It's breeding season for them, so they're very vocal today. Okay, just pat that down a little bit. When I get done here, I'll water everything real good. And we had a good rain last night, so this is pretty wet, but I'll give it a good watering and make sure that it stays not soaking wet, but damp until the plants come up. Now, one good thing about the straw is it holds moisture. And that's why growing in the straw bales the last several years, I really enjoyed that, because once the plants get established in the straw bales, you don't have to water them the rest of the year. As long as you get rain every other week or so, you don't even have to give them any water. The straw holds that moisture, and then the plants pull it as they need it. So I'm hoping this is going to work similar to that. Even though it's not straw bales, the straw's still here, it's all composted. So I'm hoping that it'll work the same way. So we've got our early crooked neck and our zucchini planted. So we're going to go to our straight neck squash. So I'm going to do the same thing on this one. I'm going to plant the 4 seeds and just take my finger, poke a hole, and put the seed in. And then lightly cover it up. Now, one thing I did do here is I pulled a little bit of the straw on top of these mounds, so that way if we get a hard rain, it doesn't wash all the dirt away. Okay, so that has our 3 mounds planted. Let's go ahead and plant our old-fashioned beans. Now, the beans, I'll plant some on both sides so that way they grow up and make a trellis underneath. And I'll plant the old-fashioned beans and I'll plant the half runners together. So I'll do every other one an old-fashioned bean and every other one half runners. We have all the cucumbers and beans planted around the edge of the fence. I just went ahead and cut that out so you didn't have to sit and watch it. I'll come back in here now. I'll give it a good watering, good soaking. That way the seeds have all the moisture they need to sprout. And then throughout the summer, like I said, I'll probably do another video about halfway through the summer and then another one at the end of the summer. So this will be part 1. And that way I can show you exactly how much food that we were able to grow. I'll keep track of it as we pick it. And that way you can see how much food you can grow in just a small area, just a 5 foot by 10 foot area on it. So if you have any questions or comments, leave it below. Thanks for watching.
The quality of a leader is reflected in the standards they set for themselves. Ray Kroc.
Welcome back to the homestead, y'all. I just wanted to give you a quick update on our 5 foot by 10 foot garden bed and how it's doing. It's been almost a month now. Today is June 16th. We planted these May 19th. As you can see, the beans are starting to vine up. They're starting to grow up the wire. The squash, the zucchini, and the other squash are doing great. The cucumbers are starting to vine also. I was just gonna come in here today and got the dirty dozen coming through over here, 12 of our little ducklings. But I was gonna come in here today and I was gonna go ahead and defoliate some of the squash, some of the zucchini, and take some of these big leaves off. That'll help with airflow. It'll keep powdery mildew down. It'll let more sunlight into the center of the plant. So I thought I'd go ahead and just give you a quick update on this. We'll come back in about another month or so and do another video showing how much we've picked off of these. We should start getting squash soon. They're starting to bloom a little bit back here, so it won't be long and we'll be getting squash off of this. And we'll be getting zucchini very soon. We have, I think, 2 blooms on the zucchini plant. But what I wanted to do was come in here and defoliate, show you how I do it. I know there's many ways of doing it. You can just take your thumb and pick off, but I like to use a pair of sharp pruning shears or scissors to cut it off clean. And I just like to come in here and take some of the bigger leaves and pull them off, and then I'll throw them in the composter. And throughout the summer, I'll do the same thing throughout the summer. As the leaves get too many, get too full, I'll come in here and I'll just cut a few leaves here and there, so that way we keep airflow going, and hopefully we'll keep down on powdery mildew. When I defoliate my squash and my zucchini, I like to come in to the top, and especially here in the center, and take some of these big leaves. And I just reach in there and I just cut them off, just like that. And like I said, we'll put these in the composter. But just come in here and cut 2 or 3 or 4, depending on how big your plants are. Cut several of them out of the way, and I just pitch them outside the netting. We have netting around this so we can keep our chickens out, and that opens up the center. So we'll come and we'll do this one the same way, this zucchini. Now that we've got the squash plant, take some of the bigger plants, the bigger leaves, and cut them off. And come back here to this one, do the same thing. Just take some of the top big leaves off of it, just like that. So what that does is that lets more airflow through, lets more sunlight penetrate. There's several blooms on these squash plants. There's 2 on the zucchini, and there's probably 8 or 10 on this back one too. So that's gonna let sunlight in, it's gonna let air flow through, and hopefully we'll keep down on the powdery mildew. We have a problem with powdery mildew, especially once we get on into July and August. So I like to do this at least once a month. Sometimes I'll do it a little bit more depending on how fast they grow, how fast the plants grow. These have grown real well. We should be getting squash soon, but I just wanted to update you, show you where we're at, and next month I'll do another video and give you another update. Thanks for watching.
When it comes to life, we spin our own yarn, And where we end up is really, in fact, where we always intended to be. Julia Glass.
Welcome back to the homestead, y'all. This is our 5-foot by 10-foot grow. It's been 6 weeks since we planted these seeds. Today we got our first zucchini off of it. I'm having to come back in here about once a week and trim these leaves back and prune them. I'm afraid of blossom end rot. I'm afraid of powdery mildew. So once a week I've been coming in here and trimming these out. In fact, I had to cut me out a spot to where I could sit in here and get in camera. But they're growing great. They're looking good. Like I said, we got our first zucchini today. I can't believe it's only been 6 weeks and these plants are this big. All our beans are starting to trellis up, getting to the top. Our cucumbers are trellising up. We have small cucumbers on all of them. The beans are blooming. The zucchini's blooming. The squash is blooming. So I want to go ahead and get some of these bigger leaves off here so that way we'll hopefully prevent powdery mildew and blossom end rot. I wasn't going to make another video this quick on this grow, but it's been doing so well that I thought I would show you how it was doing, how it was progressing. We're having to really keep an eye on the cucumber vines. You can see these are cucumber leaves right here. They're probably twice the size of my hand. The squash and zucchini leaves are just huge. They're just big, beautiful leaves. So I'm gonna get in here, I'm gonna cut some of these back and get them out of here, and I'll put them in the composter. And hopefully it'll help prevent powdery mildew and blossom end rot. We'll let sunshine in, we'll let air flow through it. It really doesn't matter how you cut these. I like to cut some of the big top leaves so that way it lets more sunshine into the blooms. You'll get more blooms, which produces more squash and zucchini. But I just go through here. There's a big one right there. I'll cut it off. But you can see how big they are. But we've been very pleased with how well these have grown. Looks like we have some squash that'll be ready to pick in a couple days. Today is June 30th. Remember, we planted the seeds on May 19th. So, like I said, it's 6 weeks today since we planted the seeds of these. A couple more back here. And I'll grab the camera and take you around and show you all the blooms that are inside this. One thing I do look for, if I see any disease on any of the leaves, I'll make sure to cut those off. Or if I see insects that I don't want in my garden, I'll cut those leaves off. And like I said, those leaves, if they're a diseased leaf, I take them to my burn pile. I don't put them in my composter. But I haven't seen any diseased leaves on any of these plants yet. I do have some holes where the Japanese beetles are just starting to get in. So I called my chickens over here this morning, and my wife and I, we picked Japanese beetles off and fed them to the chickens. And we just go around, and sometimes we'll get us a little can with some water in it and throw them in it, and sometimes we'll just squeeze them a little and pitch them down and let the chickens eat them. That's looking pretty good. I'm gonna go around back here, cut some of these. Get some of these bigger leaves off. Now later on in the year, if I start to see powdery mildew on any of them, I'll cut those leaves immediately. And like I said, I'll take them, put them in the burn pile. But our beans are trellising well, our cucumbers are trellising well. You can see this is a cucumber over here. Cucumbers here, trellising up. And they're looking great. All of them are looking real good. Now I do help the cucumbers This cucumber is actually coming across from that side, from the other side. So I do help them trellis. You do have to weave those in and out a little bit, but once they grab a hold, these little arms grab a hold, they're usually good to go. Okay, well that should have it opened up pretty good. I'll grab the camera and take you around and give you a closer look at everything. So if we look in here, you can see this is a cucumber, but you can see the blooms. The blooms back there on that one. These are cucumber leaves. The beans are climbing up. Most of the beans are over head high now. So we'll look in here at the zucchini. You can see all the blooms in there. And then the squash. You can see the blooms, you can see the squash down in there. And the beans trellising up on this side. And then the cucumbers trellising up. So these are cucumbers here. See, that's cucumber leaves. And we'll take a peek in here. All the blooms from the squash. If you have any questions or comments about this grow, please leave them below. Thanks for watching.
No occupation is so delightful to me as the culture of the earth, and no culture comparable to that of a garden. Thomas Jefferson.
This will be the last update that I do on our grow here. This is our 5-foot by 10-foot grow. Our squash and zucchini have grown out. They're just about completely done now. We're still getting a few squash off the squash plant in the back. If I'd have been thinking about the end of July, I would have came in here and planted a few more seeds, squash and zucchini seeds, and that would have kept us in squash and zucchini right up till first frost. As you can see, our beans are doing great. The cucumbers are still doing great. We're still picking beans, still picking cucumbers. In the last video that I do, once we get first frost and it kills everything back, I'm going to do a video and I'll give you the totals on how much we grew in a 5-foot by 10-foot area. And I'll tell you right now, it's in the hundreds of pounds. We've been weighing everything, been counting everything, all the squash, all the zucchini, all the beans, all the cucumbers that we've been getting off this. But as you can see, the beans and the cucumbers are just doing great. We picked all the beans yesterday. There's still a few small beans hanging down here. But it's so nice to be able to just walk up under here and lay your bushel basket down and just pick your beans. So if you have any questions or comments about this grow, please leave it below. And in the next video, like I said, I'll give you the totals and I'll show you exactly how many pounds you can grow, how many pounds of food you can grow, I'm sorry, in a 5-foot by 10-foot area. Thanks for watching. Welcome back to the homestead, y'all. Well, the end of our summer growing season is here. We got a freeze last night. It was 32 degrees when I got up this morning. So that'll be the end of our beans more than likely. There's still a few beans left on here that I'm gonna pick, but I'm not gonna can these. I'm gonna save these for seed. We've already saved all the seed that we want for next year. So I'm gonna take these and dry them out. There's some already dried on here, and go ahead and shell them. So that way any of our friends or family that need seeds next year will have some extra seeds that we can give them. You can see there's some dry pods here and the seeds are good to go. These are old-fashioned beans here. But this is the end of the growing season on our 5-foot by 10-foot grow. We were able to grow 403 pounds of food in 5-foot by 10-foot area. So those of you that live in an urban or city environment, all you need is a 5-foot by 10-foot area and you can grow a whole lot of food. Like I said, we grew 403 pounds. Of course, we planted beans, cucumbers, zucchini, and squash in here. And I'll put the links to all the other videos in the description below after this one. And so that way you can go back and watch them. Or I may go ahead and put all the videos together so that way you can watch them all the way through and see what we did. I have some ideas for next year for this area. I think I can increase my yield. I think we can grow over 400 pounds in a 5 foot by 10 foot area. But I'll try that next year. That'll be an experiment for next year. But for now, we're gonna go ahead and pick the rest of these beans, shell them, dry them, and go ahead and put them in paper bags so that way they'll finish drying real well and they'll be ready for next year's garden. Also, I'm gonna go in here today and I'm gonna plant some cover crop on the ground here. I'm gonna have to put some more netting up to keep my chickens out. But once I get the netting up, then I'll go ahead and come in here and I'll plant a cover crop in here. So that way we keep roots in the soil and keep the mycorrhizal fungi and all the microbiology in the soil. We'll keep it happy all winter long and feed it all winter long. But if you have any questions or comments about this grow, please leave them below and we'll answer them as best we can. But next year I think I can grow more than 400 pounds of food in a 5 foot by 10 foot area. I'm gonna go ahead and put some more trellises to grow some more beans, and I'm gonna put chicken manure in here all winter long, just straight chicken manure, straight out of the chicken coop. I'm just gonna take and put it right on top of the ground, on top of the cover crop, and let it compost in place all winter long, and then some wood stove ashes. And then I'm gonna go ahead and some of the grass clippings, I still need to mow one more time, maybe 2 more times. So I'm gonna keep all those grass clippings and I'm gonna put them in on top of this also. So I'm hoping next year I can get more than 400 pounds out of it, but we'll see. So if you have any questions, comments, please leave them below, and thanks for watching. I have to go get me a bag. There's going to be quite a few of these, it looks like. There's some dried right there. Oh yeah.